when I'm like this, I was dealing with the customer support this week. So when I'm sitting down and meditating, I can feel it in my body, this like frustration, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I have one idea is like, I should just let that frustration, watch it and let go of it, because it's not.
What's being frustrated?
Well, it's like I'm trying to get something done, and there's a lot of unnecessary, what feels like unnecessary obstacles to it.
Well, yeah, those are teaching you patience.
Yeah.
And patience is grossly underrated. Good things take time, and also, it's a bitch to go out and try and do anything in the world because there's so many obstacles everywhere.
But then there's also times when patience isn't the right thing and you need action, right?
Yeah, but that's okay. So it's interesting. Maybe I've been approaching this from the 20th century, and now we have the opposite problem: is there's no action. Nobody does anything. They try and get as much as they can for as little as they can, and they're waiting for the AI. Like Godot.
Like who?
Godot.
Who's that?
What's the name of that famous play? Waiting for Godot. Oh, the name of the play is Waiting for Godot.
Waiting for Godot.
Yeah, it's this play the entire play takes place on a park bench. I haven't read it, but they're waiting for Godot, and I don't think Godot ever shows up. So yeah, I mean, everything is context dependent and so on and so forth. And there are times when, you need to what is it? Cut bait or get off the toilet or something. I don't know. I don't want to sound vulgar, but something like that. No, fish or cut bait or something like that. Yeah, of course.
But I guess how do you know when it's time to let go of something and be patient, or to take action? Because sometimes I'm meditating, and then my mind goes off on things, and I try to just watch it and let it go. But then sometimes something pops up in my mind. I'm like, oh, I really need to do this right now, and then I go do it. But I don't know if it was that important, or if it's
Well, that's just your mind trying to get you out of meditation. That's that. I mean, I'd say 85% of the time, it's not a true emergency. It's your mind trying to weasel out of being trained. Trained, but don't underestimate that meditation. It's very valuable.
Yeah.
When you're training your mind for when you're not in meditation. Speaking of which, I was recently reviewing this concept called aphantasia. Do you know what that is? Read it out to the audience so they know what it is.
The inability to voluntarily form mental images.
Yeah, and I thought about that, and I was thinking, in the Nundro, which is very, very, very powerful practice, it probably was the one that got me over the top. These visualizations are done very, very methodically, and they understand that it's not easy to do, and they help you do it, and then using those visual representations, of the tulare of the goddess or whatever that you have in your mind, then you start deconstructing it and the world. And there's many nuances to the practice, including, having the deity enter your body or you enter the deity's body, whatever. It's very powerful. And I don't talk much about the Nundro, and maybe I should more. But what you could do is look up, now that we have these AIs, you could look up highest yoga tantra visualization exercises. And that's a whole set of practices that maybe we should revisit, because of the history of humanity. This is a very powerful means to quickly make progress.
Okay.
But you have to have the right mindset, and you have to be somewhat purified, because it'll give you a lot of power. and a lot of it is quite erotic, frankly. And at any rate, I just bring it up as an adjunct for people who are impatient, right?
Yeah. I was actually having a conversation about this recently because I feel like it's been trendy. The apple, visualize an apple one has been trendy with
visualize an apple.
Yeah, that's the one. I see this all on social media. People talking about how they talk about aphantasia, and they use the example that what do you see when you try to think of an apple? And some people see a clear image of an apple, some people see a fuzzy image, and some people see nothing at all, right?
Correct, but that can be trained.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you want to believe you can't see anything, and you're only going to give it a couple of seconds,
right?
Before you decide, which most people do, then you haven't really answered the question at all. And that's where the ancient, I think it's 13th century Tibetan Buddhist practices of the highest yoga tantra of the Mahayana and Tantrayana come in very, very handy. So
so I was trying to explain that to someone, and then we also talked about we were talking about like whether you think with an inner monologue, or if you have kind of abstract thoughts as well. And someone was saying that they only have thoughts that are like words, and I argued that everybody has abstract thoughts, and
you're probably right.
They just don't pay attention.
They haven't put it into words yet.
And then yeah. And then my argument for that was that...
Good. Because people are judging their minds. It's amazing, right? If you were going to buy a new car, you spend more time looking at the car and thinking about the car than you do when you're trying to analyze your own mind.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that people not just, say, oh, yeah, that one, spend 5 seconds on it, literally 10 seconds, and make a decision that's going to impact their view of themselves for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm aphantasic.
Yeah. And my argument,
aphantasia.
I found I think it's a good argument that everybody has at least some abstract thoughts, because everybody's had the experience of having a word on the tip of their tongue, right?
Well, absolutely, and there's other reasons.
But yeah.
Not the least of which is free energy principle.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the free energy principle says that the job of a biological system is to try and fit its model of reality to what it's going to encounter next.
I see.
And that requires some abstraction. And words are abstractions.
Right.
Anger, patience, visualization, those are all three abstractions.
Yeah.
So the thing is to do this work with care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you really mean it, not like you're just trying to get through the conversation.
Right.
And then we have the other problem, which is bias. Like people want to be one way or another. Right. I mean, when I was growing up, nobody wanted to be autistic. Now, everybody wants to be autistic. Right. When I was growing up, nobody wanted to be ADHD. It was a shameful thing. Oh my God, and the shrinks are giving you meds. Oh no. Now it's like, hey, can I come visit your shrink to get some meds for my ADHD?
Yeah.
It's like it's just the signs of a society that have gone awry.
Yeah.
Trees never get ADHD. Okay, so you want to go deeper than the mind and talk about some things deeper than the human mind?
I had a question on one of the chapters in the Tao.
Oh, good. The Tao.
So...
the eternal Tao.
Chapter 52, The World Has a Beginning.
Okay, read it to me because I don't have the book with me.
Yeah. The world has a beginning. That is the mother of the world. Once you've found the mother, thereby you know the child. Once you know the child, you return to keep the mother, not perishing though the body die. Close your eyes, shut your doors, and you do not toil all your life. Open your eyes, carry out your affairs, and you are not saved all your life. Seeing the small is called clarity. Keeping flexible is called strength. Using the shining radiance, you return again to the light, not leaving anything to harm yourself. This is called entering the eternal.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. See, this is why this poetry has lasted as long as it has. So they're saying many, many things here. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the first. Why don't you give me the first two lines?
Sure. The world has a beginning. That is the mother of the world.
Okay, so before there was a world and not a world, before there was yes and no, yin and yang, black and white, cold and hot, mm-hmm. There was a mother before that. There had to have been. So it's like the uncaused cause.
Mm. Right.
All right. So that's to be like God in Western, yeah. In Western way of putting it. It's not one, not two. Mm-hmm. All right. So God creates the world. Now, next.
Once you've found the mother, thereby you know the child.
Once you find God, then you know something about the world. Mm-hmm. All right. Before that, you have no idea of what the world is. You think you do, but you don't.
Once you know the child, you return to keep the mother.
Yeah, once you're in the world, you make sure that you return back to your mother, to the source, to the eternal Tao, so you keep yourself nourished and sane. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, good.
Not perishing though the body die.
Yeah, so I'm not going to perish even though my body dies. Mm-hmm. And anyone who finds the way, the true way, or knows God truly, they don't perish.
Right.
Their bodies go perish, but they don't. They're immortals. They're Taoist immortals. Mm-hmm. Which seems like it's saying a lot, but all it means is they've woken up. Right. And now they're identified with the eternal outside of space and time, which is an infinitely better way to live, let me tell you. But go ahead.
Yeah, the tale of the sands comes to mind there.
There you go. Good.
Close your eyes, shut your doors, and you do not toil all your life.
Right. If you don't get caught up in all of the vagrancies of the world, all of the vicissitudes, or all of the weird stuff that goes on in the world, you don't toil in that, and you can always return to the mother and find nourishment and peace and clarity. Mm-hmm. And so you don't toil all your life.
Open your eyes, carry out your affairs, and you are not saved all your life.
Yeah, then you go out there and you get beat down by the world and by the wars and by the stupidity and by the hypocrisy and by the greed and all that stuff. So once you get back in the world, you're on your own. It's going to be a real roller coaster at best. Mm. Whereas if you're not this is why these guys would go off and live in the forest sometimes, so they wouldn't have to deal with the world. The world is a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that Jesus called it an ugly hag, Mm. And wondered how anybody could get enamored of it. Yeah. And so at some point, hopefully in your life, you learned to remove yourself from the world when you need to or when you want to. Next.
And how do you do that? How do you remove yourself from the world if you have responsibilities?
You close your eyes, you shut the doors, and you just you learn how to do that. Mm. And you cut your responsibilities down as to the bare bones of what you really need. Mm. I mean, it's not a responsibility to have the latest model of car.
Right.
That's not a responsibility.
Right.
It's a responsibility to fix your roof.
Yeah.
It's not a responsibility to have the newest, shiniest roof on the block. Mm. Okay, keep going.
That makes sense. Seeing the small is called clarity. Keeping flexible is called strength.
Yeah, you can see the large in the small.
Yeah.
And just remember that. And that's so much more true. And you can see the small and the large too, but that's a little bit further down the road. But that's just very true. You can see the struggles of mankind, in a dog that has been neglected and needs to be adopted. So that was just kind of self-evident as you go about the world.
Right. Keeping flexible is called strength.
Yes, that's a Taoist maxim. So an oak, as much as we love oaks, they can get annihilated in a hurricane. Whereas a palm tree, which is much more flexible, is much more likely to survive a hurricane. And so there's not just one kind of strength. Right. Flexibility is strength also. Yeah. All right. Go
on. Using the shining radiance, you return again to the light. Not leaving anything to harm yourself. This is called entering the eternal.
Yeah, don't get attached to anything, because when you want to enter the eternal, you can't take it with you. Or even if you don't want to enter the eternal and you're going to die, whether you want to or not, the more things you have that you're attached to that you can't let go of, the more suffering there will be because you can't take it with you. That's a crude gloss on it, but it's something like that.
So this part in the notes, he says, the shining radiance is the discursive intellect. The light is immediate awareness.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so good. So this is clarity now, right? So now he's looking at a different level, and he's saying, why don't you help us now with that? The shining light is discursive or non-discursive awareness?
Using the shining radiance, that's discursive intellect, and the light is immediate awareness.
Okay, so now read the passage again.
Using the shining radiance, you return again to the light.
Okay, well, he knows more about the nuances of these ancient words, right? So I would defer to him, but he would also say that every one of these passages has several layers of meaning. Yeah. Depending on how who's reading it and when, how far along they are. But always defer to Clary if you want,
And so by this he means like the practice of is this kind of meaning like the practice of like using the discursive intellect, so the practice of saying like you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your name, you're not.
Or it could be the intellect is applied to the world.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, he's not okay. So Taoists don't necessarily preclude themselves from working in the world, although that would tend to be more Confucian than Taoist. So they have no argument with discursive thought, but as long as you return to the source to make sure you're on the right track, something like that. Okay. I mean, it's interesting to hear this, because I don't know of any other place where he does this or where it's done. And I suspect it has to do with the translation, where shining light and discursive intellect are considered the same thing.
Right. That's what stuck out to me, because
so I think it has to do with some of the details of translation. It could be a word that meant both, and he wanted to balance it out, because they're not extreme. They're not fanatics. If they were fanatics, they couldn't get anywhere.
Because when I read this without reading the notes, it made me think of when I meditate and like the visual field has kind of like a glow to it. And
good. Well, maybe that's it. So you're saying the shining light in meditation?
Yeah, if I meditate with my eyes open.
With your eyes open. Okay, yeah.
And even closed as well, but it's more obvious with the eyes open. There's like a glow in the visual field that starts sometimes, and it can like grow. And then it can lead to, I don't know, like a deeper.
And then what is the last line again?
It's using the shining radiance, you return again to the light, not leaving anything to harm yourself. This is called entering the eternal.
Okay, I'd have to contemplate that some more.
Okay.
But in that context, yeah, it could be that you're leaving no fixed objects, no objects at all, everything being, composite, compounded, temporary, with no inherent existence of its own and no essence of its own. Then there's nothing to carry with you into the eternal or something like that.
Mm.
But see, these things, that's what I mean. I've been reading that book for 50 years, and this gives me something else to contemplate.
Yeah. And then just in those notes, the last line 16, this is called entering the eternal. He says, the word for entering also means reaching, relying on, and being based upon. Another version says learning/practicing the eternal. The unrefracted light.
That means dropping all objects. And any idea of objects. So yeah, it could be a meditation practice. And going back to Nundro, the whole purpose of it, you construct these elaborate visualizations, and then they vanish into less than thin air. And it's kind of like the beautiful mandala practices they do, where they spend a week building a beautiful sand mandala, and then the next day they just wipe it off the table or off the floor. Right, so it's a teaching in impermanence and also in the lack of inherent essence for anything that you imagine might exist. Because you could look around you all day long, you're not going to find anything that exists independently or inherently with its own true essence.
Right.
So that could be what it is, but now we're talking pretty advanced meditation practices. But I like it. It's good. And so, folks, continue with the Tao. Long after I'm gone, you can keep reading that Tao, or anybody's gone, and it's endlessly nourishing.
And then just the last line of his notes, he says, the unrefracted light of the immediate awareness of the basic ground of consciousness is called the eternal because its essence is not modified by temporal conditioning.
Right. It's beyond space and time. And reflective light is not beyond space and time. Or something like that.
Okay.
Good.
This one, not so much of a question, but I just wanted to bring it up. The other night before going to bed, must have been just like contemplating things, and the Sufi story of the monkey snatching like the fruit or something in the jar.
Yeah, the monkey trapped. And the cherry in the jar.
Yeah, that one came up, and it was kind of an instance.
You want to tell the audience that story? It's a Sufi teaching tale. It's a good one. If you have it there, you can read it to them.
I don't have it here. I don't know which book it's from.
All right, why don't you try it, and then I'll add something if I think you're missing something.
So I don't remember if there's much of a story to it, but the idea is that there's a trapper who puts little like cherries or something in a glass jar, and monkeys come and they try to grab the cherry, and they can fit their hand in it. But then once they close their fist over the cherry, their hand gets stuck. And the monkeys they want the cherry so bad that they don't take their hand out, and they get stuck in the jar, and
they won't open their fists.
Yeah, because then they would lose the cherry or whatever it is, and then they end up getting caught by the trapper,
who wraps them on the elbow,
right,
with a little stick,
right,
and then their hands involuntarily open, and then they can take them out of the jar and catch another monkey.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a Sufi story on at least attachment.
Yeah.
And being unwilling to let go. Yeah. It's very memorable too, right?
Yeah. So the first times I've read that a few times now, and it always like immediately made sense. Like, but it was.
You didn't realize that you were the monkey?
Something like that.
You are the monkey.
Yeah.
The whole world is the monkey. Well, there's nothing more foolish than catching. You know that I love that story. I've still got it in my head about you are the donkey. The whole world is the donkey.
What is this?
Oh! It's a story. It's in Instant Zen. I think it's maybe the second or third story in there about where there's. He says in my school there's two kinds of Zen sickness. Oh, you got to read this.
Okay.
Or listen to it.
Okay.
Actually, listening to it in this case is pretty good.
Okay.
And he says the two kinds of sickness are looking for a donkey when you're riding a donkey, right? That's the first sickness. And the second sickness is being unwilling to dismount the donkey once you found the donkey. And then in this beautiful Zen, you know, these Zen guys are great. He's just and not realizing that you are the donkey. The whole world is the donkey. You know, to not be willing to get off of it is like the kind of Zen sickness that's really hard to cure. But no, you got to read Instant Zen.
Okay.
It's a beautiful little book. Get the audio too. In this case, I can say get the audio.
Okay.
Just because it's just well narrated. I'd like some of them.
Okay. But yeah, in this case, I was thinking about, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something about like how, I was kind of like striving for peace, and then that story came to mind. I was like, oh yeah, like
you can't grab peace.
You're right. Like,
although what you do is you cultivate the causes and conditions, and peace will come to you.
Right.
In time, right?
Right.
In time, it'll all come to you. Just see, it's hard for people to realize the circumstance. The circumstance is that the only free will you have is to prepare yourself and your mind. Then the things, the causes, the things and the results of those causes and conditions will naturally come about. But they come to you. You don't go to them.
Right.
You don't ask Willie Nelson when you're going to get your picture taken with him. He tells you when you're going to get your picture taken with him. Something like that.
I have one more question. Well, yeah. The last video you were talking about bodhisattvas and sentient beings and there being no sentient beings.
Nor bodhisattvas, but go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. And I was listening to that, and it was like starting to make sense, but I couldn't quite grasp it. So I just wanted to continue that conversation.
Well, this world is full of paradoxes. Even in mathematics, we have paradoxes. And we can't get past paradoxes with the little monkey brains that we were given. Right? If I say this theorem is false, there's nowhere to go with that. Okay. And in addition to that, we have the issue of Gödel's incompleteness theorem or whatever you want to call it, where you can't really judge a system that you're part of unless you can manage to extract yourself from it at the same time, I guess. And it's something analogous, just analogous to these paradoxes, in that something both exists and is real and does not exist and is unreal. So both of those things are true. But they're true at different levels. The former level we call conventional reality or provisional reality or apparent reality. And we work with it just like we would in a dream. If you wanted to get a hot dog in a dream, you'd have to cross the street and give the guy $1. Pretty much. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's analogous to conventional reality, provisional reality. But that's not reality, because in this enterprise we're looking for truth. And it turns out that the truth, although it allows for conventional, provisional reality, that's not where the truth is found. And scientists, my great joy in the 21st century, and I never thought this would happen, is that 21st century science, actually it started before that, but has realized that must be true. That what we're calling conventional reality can't be truth.
Right.
Can't be base reality.
Right. But when you're saying...
go ahead.
When you're saying something like, when you're talking to a person that you're not talking to a sentient being, it's not the reality. Does it make sense to say that you yourself is also not real?
Absolutely, right. I'm not real. Are you kidding? Because I'm a voice in your head.
Right.
I'm a voice coming over the speaker in your phone or your television.
But then
I'm not real at all. I mean, well, you could say I'm real in one way.
No, that's not
the interesting way.
Okay, in this case, when I say you're not real, but neither am I, right? At that level, is that
where we're equally real?
Right.
And unreal. I'm a voice in your head, but there is no head and there is no voice.
Right. Because I think the first time when I think about like, oh, you're not real. The person I'm talking to is just a voice. It's a projection of my mind.
It is.
Then I think about,
are ripples on a lake real? Now here we're going down the middle, right? We're not going one way or the other. This is a teaching thing, and I probably shouldn't use it because it's really for brains that aren't prepared or for weak minds.
Yeah. So when
ripples on a lake, are those real or not real?
Right. So when I think about it, I go, okay, well, it's like it's a projection of my mind, right? My brain. But then the next thought is, well, how does that mean that my brain or my mind is the only one? Like, how could I be the only?
No, not even one? You say my brain. See, you're taking your brain for granted.
Right. So that's the mistake, right?
Yeah.
And
there's no you.
Right.
And there's no your brain. There's a play of consciousness, like the ripples on the top of a lake, I suppose. And they'll arise for a bit and then they'll subside. But there never was anything different than water there. And so that's what I mean by paradox. And people should not go there straight away because it'll break their brains. No, seriously. And sometimes people get scared and all this other stuff.
Right.
They can relax. It's much more sublime than all that. And
right. That's like the first time I started kind of getting into Buddhism more deeply and like hearing about enlightenment. I was so scared that of, why would you want enlightenment? That means annihilation.
Kind of means the opposite of annihilation, but
right.
Depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it from the personal self, the little ego. Believe me, you're going to want relief from your ego when you get to be my age.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So now, but the other thing is, this guy, Don Miguel Ruiz, I think does it the gentlest of anybody, and he has a very nice intro, right, about how we dream the world, right. And I think that's less scary for folks. I don't know, but I think it is. He sold a lot of books, put it that way.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Anything else before we stop today? I like the questions.
Those are the main ones, yeah.
All right, sir. Welcome back. Take good care.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Adios.